Given the level of threat that the Islamic State now poses to the West, in the view of David Cameron and Barack Obama, should we be looking at some kind of military intervention?
Well, I think everything has got to be on the table. But my word to the wise is if you do it, you've got to do it properly. If you look at East Timor, Sierra Leone, and even Kosovo, Bosnia, for example, that are successful interventions, actually, it's because relative to the enemy, relative to the threat posed, those involved did it properly. My worry would be that the sort of response I think that is being looked at the moment isn't comprehensive enough, isn't full enough to achieve the sort of success that people need to achieve. And if you don't do it properly, you just make it worse. So I'm absolutely with the Prime Minister that this is the biggest threat facing us at the moment. It ought to be dealt with. A military dimension, certainly, I suspect, has to be part of it. Doesn't mean British boots on the ground, but you've got to do it properly. And all the nations of this world, I think, should come together in a new version of NATO, if you like, to get their act together, accept it's going to take a long time, and then get on and do it properly.
In the Western policy towards the Islamic State, it is unstructured, isn't it? There is no policy.
Well, I think there's a policy. But there's a big difference between a policy and a strategy. I think they've got a policy. President Obama the other day admitted he didn't yet have a strategy. That's what they've now got to come up with. And I heard the chairman of the Joint Chiefs speak the other day, a good friend of mine, General Marty Dempsey. Without doubt, he understands what's required. I have no doubt that my successor here in London as Chief of Defence Staff, General Horton, does. But have the nations and have our political leaders got the will to bring it all together in the multi-dimensional way that the Prime Minister rightly spoke of the other day, some military, economic, diplomatic, humanitarian, all that's got to come together in a synergistic way. And it will, as the Prime Minister said, be a generational struggle. Are we up for it? That is the issue. And a policy is not a plan, i.e. is not a strategy.
So essentially you're saying that we now need to look to our political leadership to step up to the plate, explain some awkward truths to the population and get on with the job.
This is a threat that requires a sort of scale of effort and a united approach that needs great leadership, it needs statesmen and vision. I have no doubt that we've got them there, but they aren't used to doing it, and someone's got to help them bring it all together. There's got to be a conspicuous leader. I imagine that should have to be President Obama. People like Prime Minister Cameron and his advisors clearly get it, but I don't think they've yet really grasped the immensity of the problem and the scale of solution, i.e. in bringing together all these nations in a coherent way to develop an agreed strategy and accept it's going to take a lot of willpower and probably quite a lot of time.
Russia's back. It's aggressive. Do you really honestly think that there are any leaders within NATO, particularly in the English-speaking parts of NATO, that have the statesmanship, the nerve to deal with Vladimir Putin?
I sat alongside Prime Minister Cameron for 3 years in the National Security Council. It is not for me, to make these judgments, but I can absolutely tell you he is a leader. Can that leadership, with help and with experience, be turned into the sort of visionary statesman that we're now requiring of him and President Obama and other Western leaders? Yes, I have no doubt that can happen. But it's out with our and their experience. They are intrinsically capable of it, but it needs a change of mindset, less politician, more statesman.
But the Ukrainians have applied or said that they're going to apply for full ally status within NATO.
I do think that NATO should not at the moment accept Ukraine into that alliance, that Article 5 commitment. No, definitely.
Because it could trigger a war.
You can't, in the middle of a conflict, decide you're suddenly going to spread that commitment to another country. My own view is that Europe should be a little more careful in encouraging them because they can't, at the end of the day, deliver on it. we need to understand these countries much better before we even offer support, which in the event we can't actually follow through on. And I think it's almost immoral sometimes to do this. And there is a little risk at the back of my mind that Ukraine could fall into that situation, and we shouldn't encourage it.